When you picture a pirate, what do you see? A man in a fancy coat with gold trim, an eye patch, a feathered hat, maybe a parrot on his shoulder? That image is everywhere, from Halloween costumes to blockbuster films. But here's the truth. Real pirates looked nothing like that. Forget the movies. The actual appearance of pirates was shaped by hard labor, harsh living conditions, brutal combat, and survival at sea. In fact, if you saw a real pirate walk down the street today, you might not even recognize him. Let's set aside the fiction and talk about what pirates really looked like. Clothing. Function over fashion. To begin with, most pirates didn't wear flashy clothes. No ruffled shirts or perfect leather boots. What they wore was based on what they could steal, salvage, or trade. Many pirates came from working-class backgrounds: sailors, fishermen, ex-Navy men. Their clothing was practical: coarse shirts, sturdy trousers, waistcoats or vests, and head wraps made for protection against sun, wind, and salt water. Their garments were often worn thin and patched repeatedly. Sailcloth and linen were common fabrics, chosen for durability. Fancy silks and velvets? Only if stolen from a wealthy victim, and even then, such pieces were more trophies than everyday wear. Bright colors faded quickly under the sun and salt water, leaving most pirates clad in dull earth tones, browns, rays, and faded blues. That said, some pirates did add flair, but on their own rough terms. Pirates robbed ships, including merchant vessels and Navy transports, and they often kept the best loot for themselves. So, if a pirate captured a captain's trunk filled with fine coats, silk scarves, or embroidered waistcoats, he might wear them. Not to look noble, but to show status and intimidate rivals. The result? Some pirates could appear surprisingly well-dressed compared to their crewmates, but their look was still rough around the edges. Clothes torn and stained, mismatched pieces worn together, and boots scuffed or missing altogether. Accessories and practical gear. While Hollywood loves to give every pirate an eye patch or a peg leg, these were rare, but not unheard of. Pirate life was dangerous, injuries were common, and medical care brutal. Some men lost limbs in battle or accidents. A wooden leg or metal hook was sometimes the best option available. The eye patch is especially interesting. Beyond hiding a missing eye, there's a theory that pirates used eye patches to preserve night vision by keeping one eye covered below decks and swapping it when coming above decks. Although unproven, this idea shows how pirates adapted to their environment in clever ways. Pirates also wore belts or sashes loaded with weapons, pistols, cutlasses, daggers, and tools like marlinspikes. These weren't just for show. A pirate's survival depended on quick access to weapons. Jewelry was sometimes worn, especially earrings. A popular myth says pirates wore gold earrings to pay for their own funerals or to improve eyesight. The truth is less romantic, but earrings were common among sailors and pirates as trophies or status symbols, sometimes made of gold or silver, sometimes of cheaper metals. Hygiene and physical appearance. Hygiene was almost non-existent. Bathing was almost impossible at sea. Fresh water was limited and saved for drinking. Soap was a luxury few could afford. Pirates often went weeks without washing. Their hair grew long and wild, their skin darkened and cracked from constant sun exposure, and their hands were raw and blistered from rope work. Lice and fleas were constant companions. Crews tried to manage infestations by shaving heads or burning clothes, but it was a losing battle. Clothing might be patched dozens of times before being replaced, adding to the ragged appearance. Tattoos were less common than today's pirate stereotypes suggest, But some pirates, especially those who'd spent time in Polynesia, the Caribbean, or the Americas, bore tattoos. Designs included crosses, anchors, hearts, and names of loved ones. These were carved or inked with primitive tools, often painfully, and held deep personal or superstitious meaning. Hairstyles and facial hair. Forget Jack Sparrow's perfect braids and beads. Pirates had no mirrors, stylists, or grooming salons. Some kept their hair short to minimize lice. Others let it grow long and tied it back with scraps of cloth or leather strips. Facial hair was common. Beards, mustaches, or rough stubble were a badge of manhood and toughness. Blackbeard, one of history's most notorious pirates, famously tied slow-burning fuses into his beard before battle to terrify his enemies, not for fashion, but psychological warfare. Women pirates did exist, although they were a minority, and they often had to disguise themselves as men to join crews. Famous pirates like Anne Bonny and Mary Read dressed as men, wearing trousers, coats, and boots, and carrying pistols like their male counterparts. Their disguise wasn't about fooling people forever. It was about being taken seriously in a male-dominated world. Once they proved their courage and skill in battle, many male pirates accepted them regardless of gender. Their appearance was indistinguishable from other pirates, rugged, practical, and battle-ready. Footwear and movement. Footwear was basic, often just bare feet or worn leather shoes. Pirates needed to climb rigging, balance on wet decks, and move quickly during fights. Fancy boots, like in films, were impractical and rare. If a pirate wore boots, it was likely during downtime or when on shore, not in battle. Weapons and battle gear. Every pirate carried weapons: cutlasses, pistols, daggers, axes, boarding pikes, and marlinspikes. These were worn on belts or tucked into sashes. A pirate's weapons were part of his identity and survival gear. Scars and battle damage. Pirates were covered in scars. Life at sea was brutal and dangerous. Broken noses, missing fingers, burns, deep cuts. These marks told stories of countless fights and close calls. Scars were badges of honor and proof of toughness, not something to hide. Colors and fabrics. As mentioned, most pirates were earth tones: browns, grays, faded blues. Bright colors faded fast in sun and salt water. Fabrics were wool, linen, canvas, durable materials suitable for rough life. Luxurious fabrics appeared only as stolen trophies. How pirates felt about their appearance. This is fascinating. Many pirates simply didn't care what others thought. They were outlaws, rebels who rejected society's rules. Their appearance reflected that. Some embraced their fearsome look: scars, weapons, blood-stained clothes, to intimidate enemies and rivals. Others tried to look like merchants or travelers when going ashore, blending in to avoid capture or suspicion. Pirate fashion was flexible. It was about utility, status, intimidation, not matching colors or fancy outfits. In summary, so what did pirates really look like? They looked like survivors: rough, scarred, sunburned, dirty, and ready for anything. No two were alike. Some wore stolen coats, others were half naked in the heat. Some tied feathers to hats, others wore rags. The only common thread? Toughness, practicality, and often an air of menace. So, next time you see a pirate in a movie, wearing perfect boots, a clean coat, and a Hollywood smirk, remember, that's fiction. The real pirates, they were far messier and far more fascinating.